this video is about my horse, or rather horses. It's not about politics. I'm making this because some of you have actually asked me questions about my horse, so I thought you might be interested, but this isn't the main thing. The main event will be another video about the restriction of freedom of movement in British cities that's being salami sliced in. But to my horse, just for the interest of some of you. Most of you know that I have one horse. I had him since, well, for the past 11 years or so. I got him when he was very young and trained him up myself. And the idea was that I'd have this one horse and we'd both plod our weary way through life until my extreme old age and his age to an age when he could just retire to a field and spend a few years just eating grass, which is actually the sum total of his ambitions. Now, that's my horse, and I'll call him Brown Beauty. Okay, right. Now, what happened was a couple of years ago, I was standing in over the door of the stall next to where Brown Beauty has his stall, and looking at a draft horse lying in the corner, looking utterly miserable, and we'll call her Buttercup. She hadn't been ridden for months. Her feet were in a terrible state, very badly cracked, and she's a draft horse, and draft horses were bred to work, and she wasn't being worked, and she was utterly miserable. If ever I saw a horse in a case of depression, that was it. And I remarked to one of the stable hands who was passing that horse really, the owner, Sally really needed to relinquish that horse, to sell her on or give her to some sort of charity or whatever, because the horse was not being used and was very miserable and also in a bad state. She was very fat because she wasn't being worked, and as I said, that wasn't helping the fact that her hooves were all cracked. So I mentioned this and I felt really sorry for that horse. And then a few weeks later, Sally actually approached me in the stables and said, Demi, do you want to take Sally on? And I said yes, even though I know I am not at my peak of energy and there are only so many horses you can ride at once, and I knew it was going to be tough, but I couldn't ignore that horse. So I took her on. Now, it took nearly a year to get her hooves right and to get her fit again, reasonably fit, to lose her some weight and to give her enough exercise at least so she could put some muscle on. Okay, so that's how I got Buttercup. And now, also, as you know, I mentioned that Brown Beauty had a hoof abscess, so I'm not riding him, and I doubt I'll be riding him for some weeks. So I'm riding Buttercup instead. Now, there's this problem with all horses, and yet a lot of people think that the horse's head looks so big and wise and full of brain, is actually big and wise and full of brain, but it isn't. It's big and full of empty air. Most of a horse's head is nasal cavity. There's very little room for brain inside that head. That's why it's a specialised job, shooting horses, because you can so easily just miss the brain. Even a very big horse has a brain maybe the size of an orange. It's not that big. So the thing about horses is that big empty skull is there for heat dissipation. A lot of heat gets dissipated through these big nasal cavities. Horses have trouble actually getting rid of heat, and if you're not careful with a horse, you can kill a horse simply by overheating it. Now, the other way, of course, is sweating, and sweating's good. There's nothing wrong with that, except in situations where the horse gets sweaty and then stops and then gets thoroughly chilled. This horse, Buttercup, she's a draft horse and has a very thick coat, because draft horses were not meant to be rugged up and cosseted. They were meant to be out in all sorts of weather, pulling farm carts and stuff like that, even in the snow. So they have very thick coats, I think double coats actually, and they get sweaty very easily. But that's not a problem, because most draft horses only walked. That was all they were doing. They were pulling carts or ploughs or whatever. But of course, Buttercup is not pulling carts. Now, given a personal choice, I would not have chosen Buttercup as a riding horse. And she's a very comfortable riding horse, that's for sure. But yeah, that's not really her job. However, I took her on because the owner, Sally, is a very common case. She was a teenager, horse mad, and indulgent parents. And she wanted a horse. She thought she'd get a big horse, be really impressive or whatever. And the fact is that you get a horse at 15 and then GCSEs turn up, or whatever they call now, and A-levels, and then college, and then maybe a part-time job so you can pay for your horse, for the feed and all the rest of it, and there's no time to ride anymore. And that's what happened in this case. So I took it on, as I said. It wasn't something I would have chosen to do, but I felt I had to. All right, so Buttercup's a perfectly nice horse and a really kind soul and all the rest of it. I've got no problems with her as a person. So, but she has a very thick coat. And if I take her out for a long ride and we do some trotting, she gets quite sweaty. And then I bring her back into the stall, and we can't put her out in the field because she's soaking wet. You know, all that fur, all that hair is just full of, you know, sweat and getting her cold and all the rest of it. So the thing you do in a situation like that is to clip the horse. You must have seen pictures of horses where part of the horse has been shaved away. In race horses, it's always they're always kept clipped, or they're always kept rugged so that the hair doesn't grow one way or the other. But I'm not rugging Buttercup, so I have to clip her so she can dissipate some heat. And you've got to get it right, because you've got to leave enough hair on the horse so she doesn't get chilled when she's out in the field, but take away enough that when she's out trotting and sweats, she can dissipate some heat from her the naked patches of skin. In this situation, the standard idea is to shave all the hair off the belly and the front of the throat, so it just goes down under the horse's throat and all the way down, more or less, to the rear end. Now, and part way up the side of the body. And that sounds simple enough, doesn't it? But believe me, so I was shaving the horse with this. This is a set of horse clippers. It weighs 3 pounds, and it's all right when it's being held like this, because all the weight is going down into your hand. But when it's being held like that, it's overbalanced. It's falling, throws a lot of stress on your thumb, and it gets heavier. You know that one about the thing where the professor asks his students how heavy is a glass of water, and they say like 8 grams or 4 fluid ounces or whatever it is. And the professor says, yeah, well, it's only a light 4 fluid ounces if you're doing this. But if you have to hold it out like that for half an hour, it gets very heavy. Well, this is £3 and it's an unbalanced £3. And of course, we've got the wire on the end, which is a drag, you know, it's plugged in. And so you start off by shaving down the side of the horse, and then you've got to go underneath it. Well, there's only one way to go underneath it, and that's to squat down and start. Well, anyone who's tried to paint a ceiling will immediately see the problems. So imagine you've got this £3 thing, which it took about an hour, you know, maybe more, to clip us. So that's an hour of holding this unbalanced thing, which, by the way, is also vibrating at the time. So it's not only heavy, but it's heavy in jerky increments. And you're like this, you know, squatting down at a weird angle under the horse with horsehair falling into your face. It's not comfortable, and that's the reason I'm making this video now, because I was so exhausted. My shoulder hurts, my as if I don't have enough trouble with this scald. My arm hurts, my wrist hurts, my thumb hurts, of course, and my back hurts. I mean, it's not debilitating, it's just that I know if I tried riding, I'd be straining stuff I should better give something of a rest to. So anyway, yeah, that's a little lesson about clipping a horse. And yeah, I think that's about it. All right, well, a lesson on horses, granniopteryx, on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Usually I talk about politics and, well, I suppose you could say sociology, but that occasionally I mention horses because they are a great interest of mine. Winston Churchill said, there is nothing so good for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse. Right, I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I keep getting letters and messages from people saying that their subscription to my channel has just disappeared and they thought I'd stopped making videos and then suddenly found their way back to me. It's happening all the time. And it's YouTube. This is YouTube. It's the fault of YouTube. I just want you to know that. It would be a good idea if you subscribe to me on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at granniopteryx, because I always let you know when I've uploaded a video on one of those platforms. Right. And you can help support my channel by liking, sharing and subscribing and checking your subscription if you're on YouTube. And also you can help support my horses by buying me a coffee and one of the other links below for donating money to the Help the Granniopteryx Horses campaign, which I'm not actually running. Okay, well, yeah, that's it. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Granniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.